I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Bristol County Water Authority. It's Thursday, March 23rd, 2023, and it is 5 o'clock. First item on the agenda, call to order has been done. The second item is public input. I don't recognize any members of the general public here. So seeing none, we move on to approval of minutes. We have the minutes from the Personnel Committee compensation meeting of the 23rd, and we have the board meeting of the 23rd. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Personnel Committee?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The next is the minutes from the board meeting of February 23rd, 2023.
Motion.
I have a question there. This is
Let's wait, we have a motion,
I will
accepted,
second it.
a second. Tom,
on page 3, the second paragraph, the last sentence, says, "We have started to drop the water level of all the structures to prepare for the plant demolition." Could someone explain what that means?
So all the yard structures hold water. There's formerly,
Tanks.
they're underground tanks that were part of the treatment process. So solids would settle out of them. It was a strategy to treat the water.
Okay, so basically we're draining it.
So they're holding tanks that are being dewatered for the contract.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Any other questions, comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, the minutes are approved. We'll now turn to the Executive Director's report. Mr. Kutu.
Yes, sir. Okay. Reporting on the goals for March 23rd, 2023. Pawtucket pipeline project, nothing new to report on phase 1, just some punch list items to close out the contract. For phase 2, design work continues. We also have an amendment for review and hopefully approval tonight to address the route change, the new railroad bridge crossing, and some miscellaneous new expenses. I had a good meeting with East Providence staff earlier this month to talk about the project, where we're at, and also with the amendment. Following the meeting, the East Providence staff agreed to move forward with the amendment. That approval still requires city council approval, which I believe should be on for sometime in April. And they are processing the reimbursement request in accordance with the cost sharing agreement. With respect to Pawtucket.
Oh, let me stop you there.
Yep.
Was that unexpected?
What's that?
The last sentence, will process BCWSA's request for reimbursement.
No. No, but I've been asking for you know, for a couple months now as to where that was.
Right,
So it's in their
okay.
payment process.
But it wasn't surprising, but it was not expected.
No.
Okay. All right, well, that's a good thing. So East Providence is processing a request. Once they get city council approval, that would mean then they would be paying reimbursement?
No, they don't need city council approval for the payment.
Okay,
They need city council approval to amend the contract and the agreement that we have with them because the design costs are
so
increased.
payments just are done on an administrative level?
Correct.
Okay, great.
And they also reach out to Agawam Hunt with respect to the river crossing and access of their property. I'm not quite sure where that is at this point.
One of I'm sorry to interrupt here. Maybe it's more appropriate when the contract amendment with Beta comes up. but I saw that you're gonna do a river crossing of the 10-mile river. And I guess it's on, is it on land that?
It's on land owned by Agawam
Agawam.
Country Club.
Now, I don't know all the specifics here, but what I was going to request is that there be some coordination with the 10-mile watershed authority, volunteer group, but they're very active along the whole 10-mile river. And I believe that area has a lot of recreational kayaking, canoeing that goes on there. I don't know that for a fact, but I think it'd be worthwhile to touch base with the 10-mile watershed.
Yeah, it's just the reason, the location that we selected is adjacent to a river crossing that already exists with a East Providence sewer pipe.
Right.
So there's already existing utility
So
infrastructure.
it's going to be
at this location.
under the river?
No, it's going over it, just similar to what the East Providence sewer pipe is.
Okay. But my point is, I think we should at least reach out to them and let them know what's going on.
Yep.
Okay.
The Power Corporation recently completed a hydraulic analysis and flow capacity report for the proposed interconnection, and we will meet with City of Pawtucket officials regarding the results of that report, and that will be the basis of the framework for the interconnection agreement. With respect to the demolition of the water treatment plant, phase 1 of the demolition was approved at the last board meeting, sent out notice of award. We have a pre-construction demo meeting scheduled for next week, and hopefully we'll get a schedule soon on that as well. There still continues to be interest in the buildings. The local historian, Ned Connors, who made the presentation that Director Janetto and I went to some time ago. I guess he had gotten word regarding our approval of the phase 1 demo, and he thought that we were going to then knock down everything. So he came in wondering what the status of that was. So he was pleased to hear that it was only the tanks and exterior structures. He was going to, I guess, speak with representatives from the Warren Preservation Society to further discuss to see what he could do to save the buildings.
Did he say whether they have anybody that's shown any kind of interest?
No.
If we're to proceed with the demolition, do we tell Mr. Connors that we have a deadline for any activity from his point?
If we decide to move forward with the plant buildings?
Well, I'm assuming if he doesn't step up with the historical side or anything like that, we're going to proceed with the plan of demoing everything.
Yeah.
So does he tell him a date so he stops the, if he doesn't come up with something by X date, we're going to proceed? I don't know what that date is.
They never stop.
Yeah, but
They'll
we
be
have
here when the machines are here.
hugging a tree, I don't think that would have been.
Well, at some point, if the board decides, hey, look, let's just move forward,
That's what
I will certainly I have a relationship with him, I would certainly give him a call and let him know that.
Okay.
For the dam removal projects, the CRMC 30-day appeal period expired on March 1st, and there were no appeals or complaints filed. And Attorney Keogh actually confirmed that with the CRMC attorney. So that CRMC decision is good. We're good with U.S. Army Corps, and we finally did receive from DEM their notice that they are good with the application. Now, it's out for public notice, and they have a 45-day public notice that went out on March 15th, so that public comment / notice period ends on May 1st. Had a discussion with the engineers from Park Corp today with Mike. They are putting together the bid documents, and because we have a very small window with respect to the time of year when we can work on these projects, the thought being that we at least put the project out to bid concurrently while the project's out to public notice. And so that will take some time to get, prospective contractors in, site visits, be at least a good month time for bidding. And then once the public notice period expires, if there's any changes, then we can move forward with the contract award. With respect to meter replacements, you see we're down to less than 38 now, Joe?
35.
And I have a memo in the agenda regarding those remaining meters and what we're planning to do with them to complete it. We're at 99.8%. Water purchases, it's about a month. Provide the graphs for everyone's perusal. The annual report will be starting up soon. Again, we'll work with RDW Group. This report, $9,500. And printing is $3,500, so it's a little increase from last year. And similar to last year, that report will be delivered at the July board meeting. Every 5 years, we're required by Mass Office of Dam Safety to do a dam inspection and report and update the emergency action plan of the Shad Factory Dam. So we issued a task order for PAR to perform that work for $100, so that's underway. And just to report to the board on some conferences and trainings, on March 1st, all employees, we had an active shooter training. Very somber kind of training, had an early morning period here, but the training was very good. He's a former state police officer, was an expert in this field, and just kind of very knowledgeable to get the people know if and when, in today's world, crazy times, what to do and how to protect yourself. And, made some suggestions that maybe...
This isn't for us to have our employees shooting.
No. But not only for here, but just, whenever you're out anywhere. So it was good information. And personally, I attended the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies Annual Water Policy Conference in DC on March 6th and 7th. Very good conference. Brought leaders from around the country and discussions and presentations regarding legislative and regulatory issues. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, I provided a copy of the public notice in Rutland's. Mike and Sue are here to provide their respective reports.
So, PFAS has been in the news. So we started a program called UCMR 5 on the federal level, and also through the Department of Health, we'll be looking at these compounds in our water supply. So we'll be taking samples where Providence water comes into our system to look for these UCMR 5. The UCMR program occurs every few years where they develop the list, but the state has taken an active role in this and has developed their own legislation surrounding contamination associated with PFAS compounds. So we'll be doing that this spring and summer. Meters, we're going to start looking at fire service meters, getting those consolidated onto our vendor's system, and hopefully leverage the deployment that we have of the fixed network system to collect that information. So we're gaining traction. We're starting to get into the active part of the season where we get out and do a lot of proactive work, but we are still doing the repairs. So you'll still see us out there. Some of it is reactive, water surfacing, people call and alert us. And, but we are still leveraging some of the satellite-based data to be a little bit proactive. So the picture there, I don't know how well it came across in your documents, but there's a fine stream of water in that picture of mud. And that's how small that leak was. But we went to this general area because the satellite told us to. And then we started listening to the water mains through a vendor, and that led to us digging on a hole here where we find these little ones. So not a big benefit from a lost water perspective, this little one, but these little ones are indicative of hundreds that are potentially out there. So we start chipping away at these, we get a bunch of 1 gallon per minute leaks, they do add up. So there is a benefit to seeking these out. Obviously the big ones, somebody will call, because we'll end up somewhere. But very happy with that so far. We are continuing to analyze it and refine how well it performed, but so far, oddly enough, satellite image from space is yielding positive results. So, good to see. So the pump station, unfortunately, it's delayed again. It's not very good. But I included a picture of what the actual components are. So in the new station, and this is an example from one of our other pump stations, this equipment is all custom manufactured. It's in a nice, neat gray cabinet, but within it, it is completely full of wires, transistors, resistors, capacitors, everything under the sun. And it's all custom developed to take the input voltage, transform it, modulate it, do whatever's necessary to feed the necessary equipment. So every one of these builds that these companies do, and there's only a couple of them that do this type of work, is one-off type constructions. It has to both meet the equipment need and the space need within the facility. So we've started talking to we're engaging the manufacturer to try to get us up in the queue. But unfortunately, the delay is associated with their production capabilities. They're just not getting enough raw materials to build this equipment for all their customers. So we're working on it, but unfortunately, it's pushed out further.
Is the contractor obligated to maintain his cost on this project, what he bid?
He has not requested an escalation based on the delays. All of these orders are old, and the manufacturers are holding all the pricing despite the delays.
Well, that's interesting because the price of everything has gone up so much, and I'm surprised by that. But
in our experience, most of the vendors are holding their pricing from the time of order, despite that they may not make it for 6-8 months. So we haven't come across that. Other water utilities throughout the country, they are having issues with vendors where they're requesting to break the contracts based on the cost upon the time of delivery.
what was the original completion, the estimated completion date?
We passed it. We started a year ago now.
Yeah.
And we were hoping to be online by the end of 2022.
Right.
That was if we had a good winter last winter, so we could do all the underground.
Yeah.
It was, temperamental, but we did get a lot of underground done last winter, so it realistically, if everything showed up, and honestly, one of the main things we thought would not show up was the generator, and that's in the building. Yes, it should have been done by now. The pipelines got done. That was supposed to dovetail right into the pump station construction and activation of the expanded high pressure.
So if you had to guess, and it would be a guess,
It would be a complete
a complete guess, because we're assuming something becomes available that we know is not available today. But if that were a normal situation, are we 6 months away from completion, or 9 months, or 3 months?
I'd say the likely is end of year.
Yeah. And that's a complete guess. I'm not trying to hold you to anything, I'm
Right,
just
yes.
trying to understand how much work has to be done.
Yeah, I wouldn't venture to guess anything on the early side, based on what we've seen today.
Thank you.
The only other thing is, next month, we should be completing the engineering for the roof replacement, so we should have that advertised early April in anticipation of bid review in early May. And that's about it.
I have not much to add, except that we did award the contract to Walsh Company for doing our renewal project for this 2023. They have submitted all of their legal documents, their bonding and their insurance. We have signed the agreement with them. So our next step will be to have a pre-construction meeting, where we invite interested parties from the towns, police, fire, and DPW, and the contractor, and basically proceed with the work. Shop drawings will start coming in now, so basically we're in the startup phase. Everything seems to be going fine. We did submit applications to the state to remain on the list to be able to use state revolving loan fund money if we decide to do so in the future. And we did have a meeting yesterday, another internal staff meeting where Mike and I and other managers presented all of the work that we're going to be doing this year to the rest of the staff. Especially customer service, even the guys out in the field, they get a lot of questions from people, so basically we just do an overview of all the different projects we're working on.
Thank you, Susan. Any questions of Susan or Mike? No? Okay. And back to you, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, we get Randy's report. I know they're working on the document repository site, I know, and Laura's starting to populate all the information into that site. But there's more to add on that.
Okay, next item on, any other questions of the director on his report? No? Okay, go on to financial reports. Dan, you're on.
All right, we have a very early February, because again, the audit to start, I think a 24th, 23rd, 24th of next month they're coming out, so I still have some adjustments and stuff like that to do that we really only do at the end of the year, adjust depreciation, adjust a retainage, and a couple other adjustments that normally don't do. So this is pretty draftish. So February versus February, revenue's down about 20%. That's lower consumption. When you look at page 7, consumption, you'll see that pretty much spot on to the consumption is down 20%, revenue's down 19.58, so that pretty much matches. On the expense side, the expenses are slightly lower. In that, we have the bigger 3 items are professional fees are lower. Again, we've talked about this for the last few months. Fewer legal fees and fewer consultant fees. Although Joe's been here for a while today, so maybe they'll go back up. Computer expense, it's a big percentage up, but it's not a big number. That's Neptune charges our current year for I think the annual contract, so that's new this year. The billing and customer services is down about 94%. Again, that's timing. Last year's February's number includes an adjustment for the allowance for doubtful accounts for North Farm. I didn't do that yet as of when I prepared these, so that number will change. So that's really why billing and customer service expenses down a lot, is the recording of the increase in the bad debt for North Farm. The next page is through February. Again, revenue's pretty flat, which we'll see that when you look at the consumption and billing for the year. was a little bit higher in January, but it's only, it decreased a little bit, so it's only up less than 1% for the year. Expenses for the year are 3.25% higher than they were last February. Again, a lot of this is timing. One big item that I talked about earlier in the year, when it first happened, was those $55,000 in the debt service costs that we didn't have obviously in the previous year. Water purchases, that's up, and that's largely the increase since consumption's pretty flat. And I think part of the increase too is, remember, because Providence charges us a little bit more than Providence does, so even though our rate increase, whatever was last year, 4%, it's a little higher. And of all that, again, federal fees was down a little bit for the year. The next page is budget to actual through February. The revenues over budget by just over 7%. Again, that started leveling off. We started seeing that level up in like October, November. A lot of that is just, again, the rate increase. Expenses is under budget, just under 7%. Again, that'll change when I start making some of the order adjustments. But the largest items under budget were professional fees and water purchases, again, down 142,000 due to the consumption being a little bit lower. And there's a little timing difference between us purchasing it and selling it too. That's why it's a little bit off in the revenue numbers. And those decreases are offset by the depreciation and amortization being a little higher due to the debt service costs that we didn't budget for. Should have budgeted something. Pages 7 and 9 are the dollars billed and gallons delivered. The dollars billed is up to almost 2.5%, and the gallons delivered is down 0.87%. Again, it's hard to see. You can see on this the consumption, the dollars billed starting to flatten out, and the gallons delivered starting to flatten out towards the last 3 or 4 months of the year. Page 10 is the trust fund report. Again, this is before all of my audit adjustments. We're about 6.52 for the debt service coverage ratio, so that's good. And page 11, we have the pension summary report. Overall decrease for the month of February. For the year, for the pension plan year, remember it starts July 1st, it's up just over 141,000. I did include one last page here. I didn't write a little thing on it, but I did because Steve had asked for it. I put in the OPEB investment account. I only get that quarterly, and I literally just got the February. I emailed them like less than an hour ago. So in February, it went up another $108,000. This is just the OPEB trust report. Steve had requested that I put in there. So again, I only get that quarterly, so I'll try to put that in there quarterly when I get it.
Thank you. Dan, is that 20% drop in water consumption, is that an actual drop in consumption, or is that a timing issue? It's sort of mind-boggling me. If you look at the monthly through the years of February, we were in the 60s to 70s, and now it went down to 51.
That's it, right?
It could be timing as well. What happens is sometimes when we bill in January, the revenues get pushed into February, and they don't belong there, and I think that's what happened last year. So year over year, it looks like it was a precipitous drop, but I think last February was overstated.
Okay, that's what I assumed, but
Yeah.
such a big...
Depending on the way the weeks fall.
Right, just wanted to make sure that was what we were... And I didn't realize that we were paying more for East Providence water
Just
than
a
we were
little
paying for
bit.
direct.
Yeah, just a little bit of, I mean,
Yeah, they charge us the same, it's just a pass-through,
That's what I assumed.
but their
Yeah.
wholesale rate from Providence is a tad higher than ours.
So Joe is a good negotiator.
A lot of work went into that.
Which is why we flow kind of like a minimal flow, to keep that water fresh through that 24-inch pipe.
Yep.
So,
so if it's like $50, $50 times
Right.
But going back to the 20% decrease, because when I saw that, my immediate reaction was, why aren't people using water? What's going on? And is it due to residential use? Is it industrial? Is it commercial? Is it?
All residential, pretty much.
It's mostly all residential.
Yeah.
Commercial and industrial are really a small part of our revenues.
Is there a spike in the sale of deodorants? It's just a very curious question to see 20% consumption, a decrease of 20%.
No,
But I understand what you're saying about timing too, so.
I mean, supposedly there was an increase in water consumption at home during the lockdown.
Right.
And reversed now, but I assume that's a very
massive
small part.
increase.
Yeah,
Massive increase during COVID.
so maybe it's an unfair comparison that's being
Well,
done.
that too, yes. It's not always wise to do a month-to-month comparison year over year because there are timing issues, there are economic issues, there are environmental issues that can affect consumption in a 30-day period. It's not always an accurate comparison. It's best to look on a quarterly or semi-annual or annual basis. That gives you a better
Kind
picture.
of evens out the
Yeah,
crazy piece. Because I saw that the first time I saw it, I checked with John, like, that looks insane, like, so, no?
well, you got our attention. Thank you. Okay, we have that item in the agenda, the board member town council reports. Any reports from the towns that anybody wants to bring up? Do you want to mention what we received?
I think that's next. I did get an email from a town councilman relative to, he got hit with an overbill, whatever it was. His bill was extremely high over a period of time. He was notified he had a problem at his house a week before, and then the bill came in. So I said, okay, there's a software program being worked on today that's going to allow users to look at their bill or at their usage over time. So I asked Steve if we could have a presentation on that. And the outcome of that, in my mind, is, okay, if you're smart enough, you're on your computer and you're looking at your usage, you'll get a ding when you have a problem. His problem was he had a toilet running for X amount of time. I understand if I'm sitting at home and I have the program running, I could probably set it up and have it ring me up and say, hey, something's wrong at your house. How do we notify the elderly that are computer challenged with the same issue? If we have the program running, how do we do that? That's where I think I left my question to go back.
But the good thing about it is he did get a notification, so the system here at BCWA was working to, let's let this person know.
Well, we both responded to him and said, yes, we're working on it, you did get notified, but it's like, that got notified on a quarterly basis. And if the person is savvy enough to be, look at his usage or their usage over time, he should be able to get kicked monthly or weekly, whatever it is if he's looking.
This councilman was an advocate for monthly billing, so he was asking us, where's the monthly billing? And Bob explained that the cost effectiveness wasn't there and so forth. But we also pointed out the new system will give us more information.
I believe that's what's next on the agenda. Is that right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's why, so we are, it's still early, but, you know, since this issue did come up, thought maybe a good time to show board members, you know, what this new program can do, but it still is in the early test phase. You know, and we agreed as a utility to be a beta test. Hopefully it will result in a better cost for us once it comes out and rolls out. So I think it still needs some work, but it kind of will give you an idea as to what customers would be able to do. Again, you're absolutely correct. They would have to be computer savvy
In order
to log on and
Although,
take a look.
something I do for my mother that people could do is have the alerts go to an email of a family member who does have computers.
That's a good,
Before we get too ahead of ourselves here, and also because I want to mention one thing to board members, so they don't fall into the problem I had, is I received last week, and all of you probably should have received also, if you haven't, you might want to check on this, is an annual filing with the Ethics Commission. You should have all received that, and as a new person, you might want to give them a call, because I was late one year, they didn't like that. But anyway, let's put it.
that's all they worry about, whether you're late or filed.
Yeah.
They never bring charges against you. You can steal all you want, but they won't.
Basically, any customer would set up an account, so you use your email and you'd set up a password and set up your account. And right now, this is what they're proposing it will look like. You basically get what they call a dashboard. It shows you obviously your account and your address that you're at. It gives you an average that 7 cubic feet is what is my average for the last month. One of the suggestions we've made to them is to switch that to gallons. Even though we bill in cubic feet, I think most people would be more easy to understand if it was in gallons. And then they have 2 alerts right now that are they're proposing to be available. One, I can set a maximum per day, and it would send me an email. So when I looked at my average of 6, and I set this number at 12, and I was getting emails every other day. It turned out just doing laundry went over 12. So then I went back in here and I switched it to 15, and now I don't get alerts all the time, but if something happened in my house, a big leak, I would get an alert. You also, what you were speaking to, can set something up here where I could, it's called a vacation or out of town mode. I could put here 0 to get an email anytime my consumption goes over 1 gallon or 0. You wouldn't want to put that on all the time. You'd be getting an email every single day. But if you're going on vacation, you can put it on 0 and set the date range there, and then it would send you an email if there's any use in your house. So usage button. So now I can see a bunch of 2 years here. On the bottom, I can zero in. So if I looked at, this is my consumption since this started in 2021. I saw this little blip over here, which looks really flat. And it turns out that was when I was on vacation. So I can go into here and I can say, yep, there, if I hover over it, so it shows that I did not use any water. And it was funny, I was looking at all the days in here, and I actually found a day that my mom came and watered my plants. So you can check up on what's going on in your house while you're away. And like I said, the alerts did work. So one of the things we're suggesting is the gallons, being able to convert this to gallons, because right now if you hover over it, it's telling me cubic feet. I think it would be nice if it could tell us something about how much it cost for a certain amount of consumption. You know, if you had, what I have done before is actually used it to see how much water I used when I was watering my garden, and then transferred that to money to see how much it cost me to water my garden. So there's a lot of uses like that. The email alerts were kind of cryptic. That's a suggestion we have to them, that the email be a little more user-friendly. It was kind of a computery type of a comment that they sent. But so that's what we're doing. We meet with them every couple of months, or by Zoom, and they take our comments.
I think this is great and whatnot, but the reality of life is that most people aren't very computer literate. So what are we doing to help out those people? Is there like an
Well, they
executive
get-
report that would come out?
They get the calls from customer service when.
Customer service will alert you that you have an over usage. They'll call you up, is what happens today. But what Sue just mentioned was if somebody's computer illiterate, and we know about this, we can tell them to have the email sent to a family member who's, for their teenage kid, they could do it on their iPad.
Is it a phone call or an email?
It's an email that you get.
This is
A lot
an
of
email.
people aren't.
But that's what it says, if you can't, if you are not email savvy, a member of your family could be, who could possibly get that email and get a hold of you and say, hey, let's check
So
it.
is a phone call an option?
Well, that could be a suggestion.
Not right
to them.
now. I mean, I would like it be, probably like a text, I think would be
Text,
good
yeah.
too, you know.
But only, I work a lot with computers, but a lot of people aren't into text. So I'm just wondering,
Could there be a robocall type thing?
I don't know, we can ask.
I think the bigger
Yeah, I mean,
challenge is
that's what
not-
they're asking us to do right now, is to give them comments. So we
Yeah,
can comment
sure.
that we want other ways to,
Yeah,
yeah, I would
Get
think,
notified.
right.
How about people go to Florida for 4 months?
That's what they
well,
say.
that was the
Saying that,
alert we got
But then the
there.
pipe freezes in their house while they're down there.
It would tell, it would
It
send
would
you,
tell
that
them?
you- well, as soon as water is getting, if you set it up before you left, it would tell you. So one thing it
You have to
doesn't
come home and find it.
necessarily tell you is if you have constant use. But I think that our customer service can see that. If someone has constant use, that's when we know they have a leak, if they're using water during the night. That's
yeah.
weird.
That's another one of my questions for them. We got whether an alert can be set up for something like
For
that.
constant use,
Yeah.
because so it might not ever go over my 15
Right.
cubic feet because it's a very small leak,
Yeah.
yet it's something I need to take care of. It's, toilet leak or something. So,
So they just rolled this out, you know, we're one of the first companies just kind of testing it out. They're probably talking to Randy, he still thinks it's a good 6 months away.
it goes by month, and then you can go
And then
to
it's,
day.
you know, we still don't even know the price of it. You know, we've heard anywhere between like maybe $1 a point, potentially. So if you have a 17,000 accounts, it'd be up to like $17,000 a year potentially. And then the question becomes, who's really going to use it? How many people are going to be actually using it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so is the system right now that customer service reviews the files from, I don't know, daily basis, a regular basis, and if they see high usage, they contact the customer? Is that?
Yes, we send postcards, actually.
Okay. So,
And it's the same, it's very similar, what we can see now, in turn, we
Yeah.
can see about customers.
now, I recall in other agencies, they always would produce what was called the exceptions report, which were the oddball data that would show up when you were doing a billing or something. So this is probably similar to that.
That's exactly it, yes.
Yeah. And so that's usually done in anticipation of a billing coming up, so you make sure you're going to put out a good bill. And so that's what happened in this case of this council person. He received the benefits of the staff going through, finding his account and saying, okay, let's call this person or send a postcard or whatever it was. But the reality was they were preparing to put a bill out, and it was real water that was used, so should expect to get a bill that would reflect that real water that was being used. So,
Would this be someone who'd have to sign up to use this? Or was this going to be just,
It'll be a link on our website. Yeah. and then
Yeah, they would have to set up
And they
an
set
account.
up the account, yeah. So there'd have to be some type of promotional, like, you have to,
and like anything else, once you put it in place, you'll find things you want to change, and the system will be modified over time. Sounds good.
Good.
The future is bright.
I can tell them to watch it on the video. You can watch tonight's meeting. Get a good insight to it.
What's coming?
Any other questions of Sue or Steve on this subject? Okay, thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for letting us see your water usage,
Yeah.
your personal water usage.
Now I know where she lives. If I hear a rescue call there, I might go.
Okay, budget, agenda item 9, report on budget, project budgets versus expenditures.
And then item number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So this is a breakdown of the remaining meter changeouts, and the reasons behind them, and what we're dealing with. As I said before, a total of 17,381 metered accounts. We have a 99.8% success rate, but we do have a few stragglers out there. You know, for those where we just haven't gotten a response, we will start recommencing issuing shut-off notices, and that generally does get attention. Those with problems are sometimes just with some old plumbing and access issues, and those are a little more challenging, but we continue to work with those customers to come up with a solution. And then we have the folks, we're gonna say, I guess, concerned with radio waves. We have a total of 8 of those customers. Trying to develop a practical working solution. I'm open to suggestions. One of them may involve installation of meter pits and then transferring the cost of doing that to the customer. I think I'm told in the past the board had voted to go that route, but the onus would be placed on the customer to put the meter pit in.
What would the cost be, Steve?
Excuse me?
The cost to do that?
A few $1,000s. I think asking them to do that is just another chase. So we're looking at each of these individually, whether it's something that maybe that we do and pass the cost on, but we wouldn't do it unless we let them know first. Other suggestions that staff would come up with is, because some of these meters are old, to change the meter, but just put a dial type meter, but that would require then us to send a meter reader out, which kind of goes against the grain of what we were trying to do here. But then adding, a service fee to that.
But presently, what is done is somebody goes into their house to read the meter.
When?
What, for these people that
No, they're estimated.
they're estimating? Oh. For years?
Generally, no. What will happen is, after they get their third very high bill, they'll call, and we'll ask them to take an image of the reading and forward it to us, and we'll bring the reading up to actual.
There are no responses, we just haven't heard from them at all,
None.
then they're not our customers.
They're paying their bills, so they might not be a customer, but someone is paying the bill, yeah.
I want to get back to what you said, Juan. I'm glad to see that Warren people are not very low on this list. Very few cooperative Warrens.
They already got their tinfoil wrapped around them.
You're making me bite my tongue. Okay, it's an interesting report, thank you. Any other questions regarding this? Anything you want to add, Joe?
I think it speaks for itself.
Okay, thank you. Now we can get into item number 9. Report on project budgets versus expenditures.
Yeah, it's the last meeting, there was some discussion on capital budget and budgets versus expenditures. I put together this table, just highlighting the main projects that we're working on. It shows board approved funds, expenses, and remaining budget, just really for information. I'm not sure if going forward, if I'm gonna add this as a kind of a append to my regular monthly report, certainly do that. It's easy to do, it's updated as we get invoices in for these various projects.
I think that'd be a good place to put it at the back of your report. You know, just on a monthly basis, see where we're going.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you so much for doing that.
Okay, so what, I'm not sure I heard what you were saying, Bob.
I said, I think it would be a good idea to include this at the back of the executive director's report on a monthly basis so we can track the major projects as they continue.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Nope. Hearing none, we can go on to an action item. Item 10, award of agricultural land lease for haying fields.
Make a motion that it be accepted.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, we've been through this before.
Yeah, we do this every year. We put out RFP, it's basically Mr. Frederick or Mr. Bruley, and this year it's Mr. Bruley.
That's the first.
Is it first?
Yeah.
This property, is there any potential of him screwing up so badly it has an adverse impact? No, we know what Friedrich has done through the years.
You're right. I think the lease does have certain qualifiers in there. If it does get that bad, I mean, we can always.
It's just for raising hay, but it says in the lease. He's not gonna move his cows over there, I don't think.
No. But he put in his RFP that he does, hay has become actually difficult to find and it's expensive, so he's actually, you can use it to feed his cows that he has over there on Market Street.
Now, does he live in the area like Farish does?
This one's on Market Street.
Yeah, he's got the cows right there next to the driving range on Market Street.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Is there any benefit to moving this to a multi-year lease, or is it just common
Yeah,
practice?
that's a good question. I don't,
It'd make it a lot easier, you don't have to worry about doing it every year.
Yeah, you know, save us the time.
Well, we should look
And
into
then
that for
maybe
next
you
year.
get higher bid prices as well because they're locked into it.
right.
Just a thought.
Next year.
Next year? Got it.
We have a motion to approve.
I got a question.
Question.
Or did I miss something? His proposal was for $4,800, and we were going to accept $400.
Per month.
What's it, what's 400 a month? It's all four per year, okay, all right, I got it.
I build it every month, but you know,
All right,
that's
I
like
got
a
it.
bill.
Any other questions? If there are none, all those in favor of the motion to approve? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay. Thank you. Then we have, the next item is approval of purchase of meters from Neptune, item 11. Steve?
Yeah, as Mike had mentioned in his report, now that we've we're pretty much done with the domestic meters. We do have approximately 240 devices on the fire service lines. And we'd like to change those out to the newer updated radio read meters. Also give us an opportunity to go out and take a look at each device and check the backflows as well. So I'm asking for approval to purchase 240 meters at a cost of $30,698.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Question.
Question.
As we proceed with the Neptunes, are there spares in here?
No, we have an existing inventory that addresses all the domestic need, so this is solely targeted for the 240.
So, but you will have.
We have spares though.
We have
spares
existing
on it.
inventory that
Okay.
handles the spares, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding this item? There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The next item is the contract amendment to PAR Corporation for asbestos monitoring services related to Phase 1 of the plant demolition project. Steve?
Yep, just a small amendment to their contract. We're gonna hire a sub-consultant specializes in monitoring asbestos abatement activities as required by DOH, associated with the plant demolition. This contract amendment is for $13,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on. Item 13, approval amendment number 2 to Beta Group for design of Phase 2 Pawtucket Pipeline Project.
Yep.
The director has provided us with a package here. Steve?
Yes. Okay, so, phase 2 design, 30% of design plans have been completed. Following completion of 30% plans, and I think if you go to the images that are in the back, you can see if you look at the first one here, initially the plan was to get off, this is Pawtucket Avenue coming up, and initially the plan was to get off Pawtucket Avenue and onto this local city street, and also cross a railroad at an at-grade crossing on Ferris Avenue. Looking at the 30% plans, it's a very narrow roadway corridor, and it is loaded with city and electrical and other utilities, to the point where, we would almost literally have to take out everything under the street, put in a 30-inch pipe and put everything back again.
That's on Ferris, right?
This is
Or on
the Ferris Avenue route.
Right.
So we had Beta look at a different route, and that's staying on Pawtucket Avenue. The corridor, it's all state roadway, but it's much wider, but there are less utilities in this section of Pawtucket Avenue. It also requires an aerial railroad crossing just north of St. Margaret's Church
Yes,
in Rumford.
yes.
Okay. It also is 2,000 feet less of pipe for construction purposes. Okay, so this is a significant change in the design. The other change in the design, on the next page, is this comes, when Beta first looked at this project, the building that is on the north side of I-195 right here, this commercial building was vacant for many years. And so Beta Group wanted to use this parking lot as a staging area for the tunneling operation that would be needed to go under 195. Unfortunately, that building then was bought, and they're moving in like 100+ employees. So using this parking lot and using this entranceway no longer was an option. However, they're not adverse of us still using their land, but they asked that it be placed on the eastern extent of their property, which is the new blue line shown, okay? So that also requires, a design change. So that, coupled with just changes in their, it's now, I think the initial contract, the latest contract amendment was 2021, it's 2023. Their start costs are higher. It's 7,700 new feet of pipe that needs to be designed from the original scope. So long and short of it is, you have a lot of detail here behind it, that they're requesting an amendment of $414,348. This brings a new total to $1,971,332.
Make a motion to be approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. I heard a whistle.
That was for me, that's a lot more money, so.
Well, maybe I'll be an instigator here, and whereas I can understand any project having new issues come up and having to renegotiate contracts and projects becoming bigger and so forth, on the last typewritten page of the memo, the letter from Beta, made me jump back a little bit. The original contract price was a little over $1 million. We gave them a previous change order of 50% for $500,000 more. And then we now want to add another 40% over the original contract, or about 25% of the amended contract, to bring it up to about $2 million. But I just think it's worth noting, I'm not against approving the contract, it's just a case of this contract got very expensive. And I don't know if there's, I'm not sure of any alternate explanation that would be wrong. I agree with the director's analysis that it should be approved. It's just, here's a project that has jumped.
Yeah, and I can address that, and I think I addressed it a little bit because the first amendment was 2021, so I was here. And when I looked at it too, and I went back in time to kind of figure out, the initial contract agreement. It seemed like, because this was broken up into two phases, phase 1, phase 2. The phase 1 design was a little more, because that was a first project, I think a little more developed when the contract was signed. The phase 2 contract costs seemed almost like a placeholder to me, because it was based really on a conceptual alignment, and not really, they didn't know exactly where they were going to go when this was signed in 2017.
And I agree with you, because when I was looking at this one here, I was thinking along those lines, like, how is it that we didn't know where it was going to go better? And the fact that we were proposing, I say we, Bristol County and Beta, decided we'll put it down Ferris Avenue. How come there was no insight by our engineers, I'll say, who work in a lot of towns around the state, to say that's not really a good choice? They finally came to that conclusion, but now we have to backtrack on the project and everything else. Now, the one good thing that you point out is from a construction cost viewpoint. The other route is shorter distance, so it'll be less pipe, but now we've got this bridge that we have to construct, which I would say that's gonna be an expensive venture. So looking at the construction later, that's gonna, maybe we didn't save any money in construction, I don't know. But I don't know if I'm asking too much for Beta to be more cognizant or more looking for the word that make them be able to prophesize what might be conditions out there that they don't know until they get into it. So I agree with the concept here. It's just amazing that the cost jumped up so quickly, and I want to make sure that the board understands why it did, and there are legitimate reasons why it did. Now, I don't think you can ask any engineer to tell you what's out there without them doing any work. So that's the kind of business we're in. You know, it's many times we all have projects at our houses, and the contractor comes in and says, I don't know what I'm getting myself into until I break open that wall. I can tell you I can tell you maybe what I think is behind the wall, but I don't really know. And this is what we get ourselves into here every day, to some extent. Engineers, not magicians. So, any other questions, comments, thoughts? We have a motion on the table to approve the recommendation of the executive director. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes are above the noes. Item 14 is the executive session for the purpose of litigation regarding North Farm pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws, Section 4246(5)(a)(2). Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're in the executive session.
Motion to seal the executive session meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Motion. The next meeting is April 27th. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All set. Do we need a vote on a motion to adjourn? Yes, we do. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Really?
Motion to adjourn is untenable.
The ayes have it.
That motion's always unanimous, that's always unanimous, and the reports too.